Welcome back, everyone. Presenting next, we have Global Arena Holding Inc. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol GAHC and is a holding and technology development company providing comprehensive technology-enabled election services. Please welcome its technology advisor, Gabriel Rodriguez, and its CEO, John Matthews. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us again. Appreciate it. Thank you to all our shareholders for your continued support. We're going to try to make a presentation this morning in a little bit more orderly fashion so that we have some time to answer your questions. So I thought I would just remind all of our existing shareholders and potential new shareholders, many of which have been contacting us, just what we do. Global Arena Holdings, Inc. is a holding company, and it has investments in 2 projects. And our main operating company is Global Election Services. And Global Election Services has been a company with a management team of 40 years in the election space. I don't have to tell many of you that right now in the United States and worldwide, elections are becoming very controversial. And the opportunities we believe exist to grow this company substantially over the next 2 or 3 years. Just for the new shareholders, Global Election Services has conducted over 8,600 elections over these 40 years. Probably tabulating more than 40 million voters. And during that entire time, specifically with our organized labor union business in the United States, we've reported our results to the U.S. Department of Labor, OLMS. And during this period of time, we've never had an election overturned. We believe this to be critically important because many people are coming into the election space. And we believe what separates us, besides our technology, is our track record and our reputations in the industry. So we think that that is really second to none, and we're moving forward. Today, I just wanted to briefly share with a lot of our shareholders a little bit of a taste of our new rebranding, which more will come out next week. So this isn't a major issue, but if you look at on the first slide, we see GES, you'll see new color schemes, and you'll see a number of developments. Moving on into another slide, this is your typical forward-looking statements disclaimer, which we'll take into play today, that the things that we're looking at, there's no assurance to statements that we may give, and we're relying on information that we hope will be extremely positive. On the next slide, this is our industry. So we believe the elections industry is really recession-proof. How many industries have under 10 market makers, or really 10 people that are in the industry actually doing it? And if you're following current events, a number of the senior market leaders in our industry are under duress. What industry is in the news daily? Well, you can guess also elections. And what industry is funded by U.S. governments? Because our end user is a municipal county in the government elections business, and that's our tax dollars. What industry is expected to pay $2.2 billion? And the answer is the elections industry. And we believe, as we've talked in the past, that the elections industry is ripe for disruptive technology, which is blockchain technology. For those of you that hear about blockchain technology is an immutable accounting system that we can use for the registration portion of electoral voting. Knowing who your voter is, we believe, is critically important to the future of this country. And this country, make no mistake about it, is at a crossroads. Whether you believe that the election was stolen or whether you believe it was a fair election is really irrelevant. The perception of what voters believe today, specifically in some corners and some groups, almost 40% of Americans believe that the election wasn't fair. In the Republican quarters, that number runs as high as 70%. So municipalities across America are moving to reinforce their rules and their regulations. And in the United States, we ultimately report to the Elections Assistance Commission. Yes, we have a 3-letter industry that we report to, like many other agencies. The Elections Assistance Commission just recently issued, last year, its new standardization called EAC 2.0. And I recommend, if anybody that's really following this industry, to go to the EAC's website and read about 2.0, because many shareholders ask us often, why haven't you applied? Why haven't you put this in? Why aren't we out selling to municipalities? It's because the rules are brand new. A lot of this comes from the 2020 election and the fallout thereof. But the reality is that everyone is going to have to comply with 2.0 to move forward, and that process is just beginning. And that's where we bring ourselves today to what our management team is focused on, right? So I mentioned that we have the 40 years, 8,600 elections, and that we routinely conduct elections using multiple methods of voting: paper trails, in-person voting. We have hundreds of clients that have been with our client and our firm for decades, and they are recurring clients. And that has been a great source of inspiration for us as they support us as we grow into this elections industry. We actually went out and won on the only bid we put out in the last presidential election, which was a Democratic primary election, because only Democrats had primaries. But we ran the statewide election for the North Dakota presidential primary, which we believed was a super source of testing, because we had hundreds of volunteers show up and actually work on our registration machines and register voters, which is what will happen in the real world. This isn't a very, very large business where we need to hire thousands and thousands of employees. The way the business works is we are really a technology company focused in the elections industry. The technology that we create and that we work with is a technology that we sell to our clients and to municipal governments in the future. So what we're going to be working on over the next year is receiving and getting our elections assistance certification. And again, it's a certification. It happens. It just may take time. You may submit it. They may come back with questions. You submit it again. There's a little bit less questions, but we believe the end result is we will get a certification. We have a proprietary voter registration, and we have a proprietary ballot scanning technology that we've developed over the last 3 years, that we've raised capital for, and that we've deployed into these areas. We believe that these are state of the art. We see them functioning very well on a daily basis when we work in elections, because that's what we're doing. We are working regularly. And these systems proved out 100% when we ran the North Dakota presidential primary. And so this is basically what we do. Our current proprietary online voting software also exists. It's important to note that when we talk about voting or online voting or proprietary voting online, or for that matter, blockchain voting online, that blockchain voting online, although approved by the Election Systems Commission, is not readily being used in multiple jurisdictions across the country and the United States. In fact, in the United States Department of Labor, we can only use online voting for contract votes or delegate votes or things of that nature. You're not allowed to elect offices by online voting, and that is also concurrently true with full-scale voting on multiple state bases in the United States. We do believe online voting has a huge potential for us in the future, and we've built out our own systems. Today, without any further ado, I wanted to introduce you to someone that you've been reading about for years. The individual, Gabriel Rodriguez, was instrumental in helping Global Election Services years ago find the right people and the right pieces in technology to develop what we currently use. And he's been a guiding hand giving us advice the whole way through. We issued a press release last week that both Gabriel Rodriguez and Kiki Vandewey, friends and people that have been involved unofficially with the company, are now officially involved with the company on an advisory board. So I'm pleased today that Gabriel had time to join us from his very busy schedule, because he's one of the people that have given us consistently fantastic advice as we built this company moving forward. And so I'd like to introduce Gabriel Rodriguez, have him give you a little bit of background on himself and what he's thinking about for the future of GES and our software as we now begin to take requests for proposals for the EAC, and as we begin to line up people to hard test our software and hardware. So Gabriel, say hello to our shareholders and take it away.
John, thank you so much for the kind words. It's really been exciting to partner with you and with the team that you've put together. It's really an amazing group that you've been instrumental in putting together. And like you said, over the past couple of years, I've been involved with kind of helping out and kind of be a sounding board off of, so we can try to mature the product and grow it. A little bit in a way of background. I've been in the technology space for 25 years. I've been focusing in a number of different areas. I focused on security, risk management, are really two main areas that I've worked in the past 25 years. Also worked with a lot of high availability, high velocity type transaction processing systems that require a number of certifications and accreditations, all government-related services. So this space for me is really exciting. And I think the technology component of what you're trying to build and what the company's trying to build is really exciting. However, anytime that we're trying to utilize disruptive technology, anytime that we're really kind of going and stretching the boundaries of the existing platform. That introduces risk and that introduces challenges. One of the focus areas that I'll be diving into over the next year or so is really on the security component, to make sure that we have adequate level of security for the technology that we're developing, number one. And number two, ensuring that we have the right technology stack to be able to scale, right? Anything can be done. However, the key to a successful deployment is how we can scale it, how we can grow the platform, how we can grow the technology stack while still maintaining a certain level of integrity and resiliency in the application and the technology that we're building. So from my perspective, I'm really excited about focusing on that part of it. At the end of the day, there's regulation that we have to comply with. The standards that are currently being developed by EAS, as you said, they're still evolving, they're still maturing. There's a number of other standard bodies. For example, there's a NIST standard body that's also contributing to that. And all of these agencies obviously want to ensure that whatever the end product is safe and secure. And at the end of the day, we all want to feel safe and secure. And the other component to that is they need to be able to trust the system. They need to be able to trust the technology that we're developing. So really from my perspective, that's where we are trying to focus a lot of our resources, bringing in the right partners, the right technology partners, to be able to get us to where we want to be. And I think we're there. We're definitely on a great trajectory ahead. The fact that, John, you mentioned there's over 40 years of legacy business under our belt is tremendous, right? Now, imagine that power when you're overlaying a whole technology stack on top of that. Now, really what you have is credibility, but at the same time, now you have the scalability to be able to do that. Can't continue, as you said, just add bodies and bodies to something. The key is how do we scale, maintaining the same level of trust, safety, and security in our systems and our processes. So anyway, we're here. We're really excited about the challenges we have ahead and the work that we're going to be able to really join and build together.
Thank you, Magdiel. I know many of you are interested in what we're working on also with blockchain, and we are working with multiple full-stack blockchain programmers. As you know, we have one deal published, which is with TrueVote, and we're moving forward with them. And we're also continuing to work with other full-stack blockchain programmers in the form of developing a registration process, which we believe will be second to none for the United States and certainly for municipal governments. And so we're actually putting up a slide now. More of these will go up onto our websites next week. We'll file, the appropriate documentation with that, but we just wanted to give you a flavor for the new color and the rebranding that it is underway. I want to report a couple more things before we open it up to questions, because often I tend to run over, which is not what I want to do today. So on the first regard of what I want to address, which I think I just feel is that a number of shareholders have asked us if we are going to institute a reverse at this time. And I can say unequivocally at this time, we've had no discussions, about a reverse to the extent that we would use one. You need to understand that in 2019, our shareholders, again, overwhelmingly, like last year, gave us a tool, which is the ability to do a reverse, and we chose not to use it. And we come back to our shareholders periodically just to make sure that we have that tool available to us. That tool would only be used if we were to be approached by, say, an acquisition candidate or someone that wanted to make a significant investment. So it would have to be accretive, would have to be positive for the company. You should also know that any type of reverse that even we would consider at the board is a pari passu type arrangement, meaning that the management of our company would suffer the same as you or gain the same as you, depending on your philosophy. Everyone seems to have an opinion about reverses. But at this time, we have that in our toolbox. We also have the discretion to increase shares up to 4 billion shares, which many people seem to favor, which is also, again, cause for debate. But at this point, we have also not found anything that we see that would be on the horizon to do that. We're focusing specifically on this elections business right now. We're putting together all the tools and all the pieces of the people that we need to begin the process, with the EAC. And we are now working with requests for proposals with vendors in the marketplace and relying on MagDL and others to help us, through this process. And as information becomes warranted, we'll be filing the appropriate AKs. We're certainly going to make a commitment, as we did in November, to speak to our shareholders at least quarterly through a conference. And we believe we'll have further information to come down in the near future. So those are kinds of things I just wanted to address. People seem to think that we're going to make an announcement today on this thing, that we're going to do some kind of 1 for 12 reverse. Please remember that we had the authority to do it in 2019 and never took anyone up on it. And remember that any type of approval for reverse must go through the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, otherwise known as FINRA, who is also out looking out for shareholders' interests, and our independent accountants, who are also very much looking out for your interest. I will also tell you that right now we are completing the 4th quarter work, and we're completing the annual report. So all of that is underway. All of that requires a considerable amount of work. In the meantime, the business goes on. MagDL, thank you for joining us today. And if there's any questions, we'd be happy to take them. Anna, if there's any questions, we're all yours.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so Lindsay's Domenico says, our 2020 elections are going to draw national attention. Can you commit to stopping the dilution?
Okay, so one was about elections, and you mean the dilution on our stock? Or delusion? I'm a little confused on the question. Well, I mean, the elections of 2020 have created a very unique situation. As a result of that, the elections assistance guidelines for 2.0 were only released March of last year, and as a result of that, they're still working on them, and we're moving in lockstep to get that application filed. As far as dilution, we do have debt, and I remind our shareholders all the time to please look at our filings. We have to have shares on hand for people to convert stock, even if they're converting it as a loss. And one of the other things that the company's been doing, which is clearly, in plain sight, is that we're negotiating with our debt holders to try to structure better deals, as we did last year and reported in the 3rd quarter.
All right, thank you. Albert Rios says, how does your revenue model work with regard to hosting the elections?
So there's 2 revenue models. There's the private revenue model, which is a revenue model based on members, which could run anywhere from $1.50 all the way up to $4.50, depending on how much work goes into the election. Depends on the volume of the election. Obviously, mail ballot elections are more expensive because you're paying for print, paper, you're paying for postage, round trip, and But from the perspective of our revenue model in organized labor, it's a very good revenue model to the extent that, it's a per voter charge. And so, we do well. The company as a whole, reporting to the public company, continues to lose money because the elections company is the only operating business. And so it does support the public company, right? So it does, those financials are all consolidated. It does go into the public company. And there we have accounting fees, we have PACOB auditors, and then we have lawyers, and then we have internal accountants, and being public is expensive. But we're very optimistic.
So Angela Wells wants to know, is Global Election Services involved in our midterm elections?
No. Global Election Services won't be involved in any elections until 2023 at the earliest. And that would be government elections. On a regular basis, we're working in the elections business with our organized labor union business and with private elections. So we're working, we did 2 elections this week already. We did one on Monday, we did one yesterday. So we're doing elections. Government elections are going to require the certification that's brand new, 2.0, to participate in government elections. So we're in the process of working towards that immediate goal as the rules are published, which, as I said, if you look at the EAC's website, you'll see this is all happening live right now.
Okay. Marion Reynolds wants to know, so there's no doubt that many people don't trust election results. How does GES combat or fix this problem and eliminate the doubt?
Very good question. The answer is Pretty simple. Who's eligible to vote? Know your voter. We talk about this all the time. We think this is where blockchain is going to be revolutionary. We have the slide up there now for registration. Most of the problems that occur in voting are who's eligible to vote. This may come as a great shock to everyone, unless you're in an organized labor union. But if organized labor unions gather to vote in person, the U.S. government, Department of Labor, OLMS, requires them to present an ID to me to vote. So we know who can vote and that's eligible, right? In the United States, we don't do that in our government elections. So it's a very interesting dichotomy that we have this what's going on. I believe our registration systems will be very, very powerful where individuals that make these decisions, which are election commissioners, both Democrat and Republican in every county. Remember, there's 3,080 counties plus cities that choose an elections vendor, 3,080 every year. Those contracts are multi-year. They run over time. We believe showing local counties and municipal governments who's eligible to vote by tracking who's passed away, unfortunately, who might have moved, and other parameters that we're setting up now will be instrumental in determining who's eligible to vote. Also, paper ballots and the way we have our proprietary registration system work the following way. The ballot goes through a proprietary scanning machine, and it takes a check. Now, most scanning machines, which run, most of the original software was created by Xerox and Eastman Kodak back in the 50s. So there's no great new technology here, but it reads it. It gives us a score. But then our particular software takes a JPEG picture of it and simultaneously keeps a physical paper copy so that you can audit it by paper, so you can actually know the voter's intent. In any case, we believe that that is the system along with our track record. And we do it every day. We did an election yesterday. We did one on Monday. We're regularly working in the elections business.
All right. David Napoli has a few questions. Here's the first one. Have we secured any municipal government elections in the U.S. or in other countries?
No, that's the certification that everyone's applying for now. So you can't apply until you have the certifications, and those rules were just published.
And with this time frame you have in place, do you think this technology will be viable when you are finally ready?
Yes, 100%.
The competition seems to be able to update and create new products faster. How do you assure investors you're going to be competitive?
I'm confused by the question because everyone operates under the same rules as declared by the EAC. So the rules are all brand new. Every major vendor has to comply with the new rules. So we think we have some fantastic innovations in blockchain, and we've proven it by our early investments going back to 2015. So we're not new to the blockchain game. I think a lot of people will try to arrive shortly in the elections business and say they're an elections company or they're going to do blockchain voting, but they don't have a track record. They're not doing elections, they're not doing the volume that we're doing. They don't have the reputation that we have. That's going to be very critical for a decision maker, is how long has your reputation been there and how long have you been doing elections?
Right. Thank you for that answer. Linda Brown says, I believe in the U.S. in the future, you may not even need a driver's license or ID to vote. How do you ensure that the voters will be properly identified?
Well, that's a great thought process, and it was probably along the path of a lot of blockchain companies prior to the 2020 election. But I can pretty much assure you that in the next decade, this entire country is going to be voting with paper on handheld. There's that much distrust. Even getting IDs at the government level is very difficult. There are places outside the United States, Estonia, Switzerland, where people can go vote with these types of technologies. And we've been to Switzerland. We've worked with blockchain people there. And it's a unique situation. People that go to vote there prior to voting actually go to the county clerk's office and they digitally register. They give them their fingerprints, eyes, facial recognition. And they use it also for taxes. They use it also for moving currency and money. I'm not 100% sure that Americans are ready to adopt such a policy where everyone's going to go down to the County Board of Elections and give them their entire life history, bank accounts, everything, IRA. I just don't see that coming yet. And unfortunately, because of the 2020 election, a lot of the disruptive companies that were moving completely online have hit a wall. There's clearly a gigantic problem with online voting. It's not recommended in the United States.
Understand that. Nathan Harper wants to know, how does the voting rights bill affect your platform?
Well, the voting rights bill is a bill that protects individual rights to vote. First, it has to pass. That's a federal bill, right? So voting rights have generally been created by state rights. For those of you who don't know, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I worked for Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan in the U.S. Senate, and I've worked in campaigns, and I've been around elections for a long time. And if we were running elections, depending if you were a Republican or a Democrat, you'd have a particular opinion about voting rights. But the voting rights bill is just going to determine how people register to vote, how are they eligible to vote, and that will change state by state. It's, you know, being an elections company or a vendor, we're going to have to walk a fine line between being on the left or the right. We're going to have to be in the middle, because in order to sell our vendor products to municipalities, in each municipality, there's a Republican commissioner and a Democratic commissioner for both parts that sign off on who the vendor is.
So John Walker says, my apologies, I missed the name of the blockchain you're working with. And is that the only blockchain platform you're working with? And have you considered the Cardano blockchain platform?
So the only thing I can talk about on this particular conference regarding blockchain is what we've published, which is to say that we're working with TrueVote. And you can go to TrueVote. They've published their white paper. They're building a blockchain hand-holding device, which is based on Bitcoin. I can tell you that, as we've previously announced, that we will be working with other blockchain technology companies as we meet the needs of what we want to build for registration software.
Thank you for that. Sue Gutierrez asks, were you successful in restructuring debt? And if so, please explain.
So if you look at last year's debt, the last very large piece of toxic debt that we had in the business resulted in, I think, I don't remember the exact amount, but I think on the September 30th numbers, I thought we might get this question. The September numbers went from 4.498 to 4.141 on restructuring debt. And we're continuing to speak to all of our debt holders now as we move forward with the various applications to the EAC. It's also important to know that we have a number of tools at our disposal besides just increasing shares and or a reverse. The company has the ability to sell preferred stock. We can sell and create multiple classes of stock through an S1, or preferred, if you will. We also have the ability to sell debt both in the subsidiary companies and in the parent company. And for those of you that follow the marketplace, the regulators, thank God, and I'm very proud they did this, have actually restructured the way corporate debt exists, and convertible toxic loan notes that you probably might have heard about in the past are no longer accepted. So that's a fantastic improvement for our industry and specifically for the OTC market. But we have a number of tools that we can use to raise capital. And one of the things that we're looking at is how do we restructure this debt? And I'll have more to say about that, in the coming weeks.
All right. Excuse me. David Napoli wants to know, have you brought any new major clients or customers to GES?
We have this year and last year. It's hard to get into the discussion of who the clients are of GES for confidentiality reasons. But one of the reasons, I think this is actually a very good question. A lot of people look at our financials and they say, well, 1 year is this year and the next year it's down. Organized labor unions vote every 3 years. So there's like an A year, B year, C year, and then it rotates back to A again. So we've been adding clients into each year. And this year we've added substantially, we've added clients that we're going to be working for. So yes, we're consistently adding new clients. It's a word of mouth. We have begun a marketing campaign. I can tell you that last year, as you probably saw with the financials, we did a lot of work for more unions than we've done before. And we're also looking at expanding, as we previously said in previous documents, potentially into the corporate voting area. I know all of you that got our package probably were shocked to find out that we paid significant amounts of money to mail you the Bible that went out with all the documents in it and back to us and the marketing. So, yeah, we believe there's a huge business in actually voting for public companies.
Ron Perry wants to know, what do you have to do to scale horizontally?
Really, for us, it's a matter of just completing the Elections Assistance Commission application to EAC. we pretty much have a substantial, good network of people that we call upon to do elections with us. We were just recently in Hawaii for a fairly big election. We've been on the West Coast. We were down in Texas. We have people, pretty much regional people already set in place that could kind of run different things for us. One of the reasons that Kiki Vandeweghe is very interesting to just come to join us with his name and reputation after having, worked at the NBA for so long is that Kiki has a substantial presence overseas. Many of the NBA teams that went there, he organized. And so he has a tremendous amount of contacts outside the United States, which we believe will be very helpful to us. But the first step is the Elections Assistance Commission.
All right. Tim David wants to know, what's the plan to increase the price of the GAHC stock? And do you think more media exposure would help?
Yeah, I think it's, more media exposure definitely will help. As you see us, this is our third, conference. We love these people at this conference. They've been very good to us. And we're going to, as I just said, I committed to doing this quarterly. And we're committing to, obviously, you're looking at the rebranding of the colors, but you'll be seeing new websites, which we've alluded to. But we need to rebrand the company. And I think the first thing we need to start telling people is we're really a technology company that's focusing on elections. We know the election space very, very well. This was a family business. It's a business that I was involved in my whole life in politics. Elections come second nature to me. I know where this goes. I think you need to really take a step back and understand that my father was an elections commissioner in Nassau County. So I know the person that I'm selling this to, whether he's a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. My client is those municipal county boards of elections and state legislatures, and each state's going to do their own thing. Each state's going to have their own little rules, and that's fine. By having all these different rules, by having all these different software platforms, each state is really helping ensure that America's elections are safe, because the more complicated they make it without a uniform system, the harder it is to hack everybody at once.
Last question quickly. Jim Carr wants to know, do you store voter data? And if so, are there other ways to monetize it?
That's a great question. And it's something that we're working on to the extent that our clients, our clients obviously are very protective over the information they give us, because we're dealing with, hundreds of thousands of members, and we have all their data. We currently don't use the data. We're trying to figure out how we can use the data. It crosses us into an area as an independent elections company where our clients who have been with us in many years, for 30 years, some of the largest names trust us that we don't lose the data. And that's one of the things that MagDL is helping us to ensure that all our data is secure. It's something we're looking at to grow. It's something that we're trying to figure out in our contracts, how we disclose it and how we have permission to potentially use it. And that gets a little gray with the U.S. Department of Labor. To be honest with you, in the voting world, it gets very gray. And that's something, for the amount of revenue that it might bring in, I think we should just focus and not lose touch with the big game, which is to get the EAC certification and move on into selling, right? That's what we got to do.
Good point. Well, John, thank you so much. What a great presentation. And we look forward to you coming back on in the near future with your updates. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, everyone, stay with us. We're going to transition to the next presenter. We'll be right back.